What makes a poem different from other kinds of literary genres? What makes a poem Catholic? What makes a Catholic poem great? These may sound like simple questions, but of course the answers are both simple and wondrous and complex. And we are so honored on the Mosaic Ark today to have award-winning poet and Catholic convert Sally Reed joining us to talk about her collection of 100 great Catholic poems and to reflect on what reading poetry can teach us about being Catholic and maybe being great. Welcome to the Mosaic Ark. Okay, Ron. Welcome, Sally. I'm so honored to have you joining us today, and I like looking forward so much to sharing the poems that you've chosen for us. And I mean, it's just like I'm fangirling. I am. No, it's
Yeah.
so Sally. I'd love. I mean, I'd love. I know you from your online presence and your books and such, but this is the first time we've spoken, right? And so it would be wonderful if you could say you could explain a little bit how you found me, because this is actually one of those gifts of Our Lady that you came to me a few years ago asking to use something that I had translated on your radio program, and I'm just fascinated by hearing about how more of you about your journey.
First of all, like how I came across you, because I saw you on a podcast years ago. I don't know when that was.
I
Somebody
hadn't been on his, yeah.
famous, my best friend, and saying, oh, there's this really cool woman and she's got this book called Mary and the Art of Prayer. And I was so intrigued. So I got the book and I absolutely loved it. And I gave it to people, and several
Ooh,
people and priests, etc. And then that book really helped with my understanding of Mary and the faith.
thank you.
It really did, because it really showed me like her presence in scripture and how integral she was to the faith before the Reformation, and how she has been
Hmm.
kind of squeezed out. So I really, really appreciated that book. And then how did I come across
Well, he's in the
Walter
book, so
Wimborne?
you may. I think you've if yeah, yeah.
He's oh, that's right, of course. Yeah,
Well, no,
right.
because there is a. I think when you got in touch with me, I showed you the full version of the poem that's online,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I knew it. I think I knew
yeah.
it from the blog first, and then of course it's in the book. And of course, in my book, The Mary Pages, which is a kind of literary memoir about my conversion, then I do quote from various
Mm.
poems in your book. So that's right. And then I used Walter Wimborne on the radio program Radio Maria, because I do a radio poetry program with them about once a month. So yes, that's how it happened. And then and I'm a convert, so I became
Mm.
Catholic in 2010, and I was an atheist.
We have to hear
um
more about that.
yeah
And I'll say so. The short answer here to
Yeah,
my
definitely.
question of how you found me is, of course, Mary. right? that I've had no I so I'm only a Catholic since 2017. So you've actually been Catholic longer than I have. Although I was Presbyterian before that. But that this phenomenon of Mary nudging and saying you must go look at this. I certainly I'm all too familiar with that because she never leaves me alone. Say, and the thing is I do feel like that. It's like here, go look, right? And you get this little insistent nudge, like you're not going to be able to not look once you get that idea. And yes, I'm familiar with the phenomenon.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mary's become increasingly important to me, but she was always important from the very beginning. So how do I explain all this? 2010, I was an atheist and a poet, and I think that I really used poetry as my religion because that was the way that I coped with things. That was the way I found form. Obsessive person anyway. And then I ended up coming to Rome and I was married with a daughter, etc., etc. And I just felt there was something really, really missing, to cut a long story short. So I began conversations with this priest, and because of another book I was writing, which was about gynecology. It was about periods and abortions and contraception.
You trained as a nurse. People need to know this.
And I was just writing poetry. And I thought, oh, gosh, some money. But it was quite cheap, but I wanted to have. I hated the Catholic Church, and it was when all the abuse stuff was coming out, and I really felt repulsion actually, and I didn't want to speak to him, but I ended up writing to him about could he find someone who would talk to me about those issues about sexuality, and he said he had a friend who was an ex-nun. But in the meantime, I said, actually, you seem intelligent and approachable, and maybe I could ask you a few questions about the Catholic Church and why anybody would be Catholic. So we started to talk, and then that was in the March of 2010. And then I had three what I can only describe as mystical experiences. One was in the April, and then another one was late April, and then one was in May. They were extremely strange and ultimately completely life-changing. And the last experience I had was sitting in a church, and I really felt the presence of Christ, like very, very, very powerfully. I mean, it was just absolutely that. From that moment, I was a Christian, but I did not want to be a Catholic.
There's so many questions. So when you were in Rome, when you were having these conversations, or you've been there since then?
No, I mean, I'm actually in Santa Marinella, which is just north of Rome, very close, but it's north of Rome. So I was in this little town. I'm still there, same house.
Okay.
And basically, I mean, I can tell you, I tend not to tell this story anymore because I've told it so many times.
I did want to talk about poems if you wanted to talk about something else, but now we're riveted.
No, but yeah, I know. And people do really want to hear it. And in fact, it's 10 years since I published Night's Bright Darkness, which is my book about this experience. And I really struggled, like as a poet. Okay, as a writer, if something happens, good, bad, or indifferent, you always think, oh, well, I have to write about this, and it's a terrible writerly thing.
I know, I had this blog I was writing while I was learning defense. Yes, and you have to process it through, putting it into words. Yeah.
And so when this happened, though, as a poet, ironically, I was like, I will never write about this. It was so profound. I thought I could never write. I would never try and take to the stage and make it about myself. So a few short years went by when I was kind of mulling it over and that the experiences that I had from structured and already tell you what happened, because the first I was arguing with this priest over email. I was really churned up, and this is the hardest thing perhaps for people to understand. I was taking it all very personally, and I felt despair and anger. Catholic generally. The night I was sitting on the edge of and I was reading a book that I read an awful lot called Capture the Castle. Do you know it? Okay, well, you should definitely read it. I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith, and it's really young women. It's like a teens novel from the wants to be a writer. 17, and she's also an atheist, and she's got a broken heart, and she goes to talk to this vicar, and he you see the poets
They do.
come in there already, because like I'm on the floor beside her, and this very strange thing happened. I'd been so kind of like questioning and arguing and kind of thrashing against the Catholic Church, and all of a sudden the tears just began to run down my face. Like I didn't feel like I was even crying, but the tears just were pouring, and I felt like I'd been injected with something, and I had this sensation, a very odd thing, and I had no references for any of this stuff. And so the next morning I wrote to the priest who I've been having the arguments with, and I told him as best as I possibly could what had happened, and he just sent back the poem. The Dark Night. Right? So this might begin to make sense to you in terms of these first two experiences, right? And then what happened some time after this, not long afterwards, several weeks, well, no, perhaps 2 weeks at the most, I was picking up my child from school. She was in school and I was a bit early. So there was a little church by the sea, a Carmelite church, and I was early. So I thought, well, I'll go into the church and sit down and wait for her. So I went into the church and it was empty. And I sat in the front pew, and I was just crying my eyes out because I was a long way from home. And it seemed like I now accepted that perhaps God up in the air and strange. And I looked up and there was a stained glass window of Christ's face. And I said out loud, if you're there, you have to help me. And as I said those words, this presence just seemed to come down and just physically almost lift me up. And my tears just dried. And I wrote in the book, it was like I'd had amnesia and somebody walked into the room and gave everything back to me more fully than ever before. So I realized who I was. I realized just everything. I kind of had my identity. And when I walked out of
That's
the
very
church, I was Christian, and I never looked back.
poignant.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. Yeah, and so the thing is, the reason I say it's poetic is because it took me, it took me months to realize that I'd had a visitation from the Trinity, the Father, who told me that yes, there is a creator, the Holy Spirit, which was the flame and the being softened up, and then Jesus Christ himself in the church. And I didn't even know, I knew the word Trinity, but I'd never kind of analyzed it. I'd never thought about it. And I certainly had no idea about the Holy Spirit. So this is why these conversion stories are so amazing, because people say, oh, well, it was all your unconscious, whatever. But actually, I just didn't know. And so when I realized that he'd given me this poem, I thought, well, I just have to write it down, So that's what I did. I told the story. And then much later in 2022, I'd begun to, after reading your book, I'd begun to realize about Mary and how she fitted into things a lot more. And then I realized that from earliest childhood, I'd had a fascination with Marian art. And wherever I've lived in the world, I've had a picture of Mary on my wall. And I wanted to write something about her that was much more kind of poetic, that kind of showed how she's much more subtle to me. She's always there in very strange ways. And I wanted to show how she'd reached me in various ways through art and through strange circumstances. So that book is also a conversion story, but it's much more literary and it's much more suggestive. And it says much more about my previous life as a sinful atheist. So people have found that to be different. And yeah.
So I have
they're
so many
two
thoughts.
parts of the conversion story.
One that I love that you say that God is a poet, and the strictly speaking, etymologically, poetry is making. So yes, God is a poet. And what you said about, now I don't remember whether it was in what you said or in the quotation, but that he has all the metaphors. He's made all the connections. He's already put us all together, and that our participating in our making is sort of seeing bits of that, right? That we're participating in what he has already made. It's I'm always, my touchstone is always Tolkien pointing to that realization that we're always making in the image, making in the law by which we're made, that we participate in that. The other thing I was thinking is how your story of coming to being Catholic is that you came through nursing, and that you were writing the book on women's physical experiences. And I am so much in my head. that my experience of coming to Mary was all very much about this moment that I had, very very quiet in college, saying you must seek wisdom. And I was doing a class in Christianity, history of the tradition, and just said, well, where's wisdom? Right. And so I go off and write the books that I have, which are about finding Mary through the scriptures and finding her in all those images. But it's like we've been brought together now in this moment of I want to hear more about the women's experience that brought you to your difficulty. It's like where the atheism was at odds with the making. And I'm also curious about why people are having the response that they do to your Mary book, because you're one of my best readers, because not everybody reads my Mary book and finds joy in it, right? They find it off-putting for different reasons.
Isn't it interesting? And I wonder, the more I love Mary, the more I'm convinced that there's a deep misogyny in the world. Actually, there's something,
yes.
That's why she doesn't get the credit she needs, but of course she's not going to have the credit because she's modest. But I've had very good feedback about the Mary book, but I've also had people, like, if you look at the Amazon reviews, which I try not to, they're either 5 and kind of like, oh, this is just, they love it, or it's 1, like, disgusting, this woman writing about her sin. So it's not a literary critique, it's like revulsion at somebody's past life. Which my past is very normal. I was a normal 90s girl in London, it's just the way it was. But I think, and I don't really write, pious literature in that sense. I write real stuff. I'm sorry, what to me is real. I write about loving God and trying, and I'm with Jesus in that I want to be with where it's at, kind of people who are really living their lives and struggling with hearts and passions and all that. And we can only try and be saintly, So I think that, and I think the priest said to me, well, look, Mary's very much, she's with the people who are in the darkest places and are sinning. She's there. People think she's not there, but she is there.
Mm-hmm.
People think that she's this kind of china doll with the pink cheeks and a crown on her head, and that's kind of one representation of her.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, she's our mother, and she understands. She knows us. So it's not about, we should be able to share things. We should be able to talk about our experiences and where we've been, and people should not feel marginalized or excluded because they are muddled. We're all muddled, aren't we?
Yes. Your story. So we picked some poem. You picked some poems that we wanted to talk about from the collection, and your story about the. I understand now why you chose Young Donald to, to start with, and my idea is we play like take turns reading, and I hope it's okay if I want to read this one, because it's
Yeah, sure.
the Young Donald, and then hear about your reflections on it. Everyone, you need to get Sally's book on one. We'll put a link in the description, because everybody needs to have this book to pray with. The 100 Great Catholic Poems, and Sally is given. It's a selection from across. It starts with the Magnificat, very appropriately, and goes through. They're not living poets in the collection, right? It's
Yeah, for this one, there are no living poets, which we made several decisions. So, we decided, because, and I think that the point is that it is a devotional book in many ways, in the sense that you really can pray with it. And Word on Fire said to me, no, make everybody Catholic, like everyone in it's got to be Catholic, and make everybody dead. And that was actually a very wise thing to do. There's going to be a follow-up, by the way, and which is going to, in a while, so which is going to be slightly different. But for this one, I think it's not such a bad thing, because it really does, you can have it as part of your prayer life, I think.
Well, and I like your introduction where you're talking about how you were making your choices for the anthology. That this is as someone who writes syllabi for a living, and you're trying to make choices on what do I need to help people see, and that it's poetry, which I think we've just been talking about, this making and the art and the craft of it, and that there's things that can be. I love where you say there are things that can be said through poems that simply can't be said any other way. No other literary genre is so concerned with truth. This we've found in our own writing, that there's trying to explain what we're up to in writing poetry, and you're always like, well, but I can't tell you except in the poem. It's in the poem, because there's only in the poetry that this resonance between image and I mean, I've got to claim, but
we barely understand it ourselves until we write it.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes poets can't understand it themselves either. I mean, T.S. Eliot, I was reading some of his letters recently, and he said, somebody was questioning him, and he said, oh, for goodness sake, can't I be allowed just to write nonsense that even I don't understand?
It rhymed, okay? Right. It felt right at the moment, and then later I'll figure it out, right? It's like later I figure. But so you picked that it's poetry, and that matters, which is what we want to talk about. It's Catholic, and that matters. And maybe if we could say a little bit about that. It's like, because you include Shakespeare, which some of our audience has a long and abiding debate about.
Obsession.
Yeah. It's Francis Bacon, really. No. That Shakespeare needs to be in here. Lots of Dante, which we appreciate, and I appreciate that you chose several different translators of Dante. It's Anthony Sillin and John Ciardi and Dorothy Sayers, which was important. But the sort of the sense of Catholic, if you could say a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Shakespeare is obviously the most controversial choice, and I don't really have a dog in the fight, as they say. Whether he was Catholic or whether he wasn't, but it seems to me there are lots of very good arguments to say that he was Catholic, and there are some good books that argue that. There's Joseph Pierce's book and Claire Asquith's book. But I think even more than that, as I say in the introduction, there's a crazy book by Ted Hughes called The Goddess of Complete Being, and it's all about Shakespeare, and it argues that really Shakespeare's work is so much about a past that England lost, and what we lost was Mary, the Virgin Mary.
Yes.
And he argues that a great deal. And he kind of looks at the plays and kind of shows that in strange ways. So I look at that a little bit, and I just feel there is, if you look at Hamlet, like, it's just very Catholic. So much of it is Catholic, you know. The ghostly father, the references to purgatory, the idea that, you know, when the king is kneeling and praying, he hasn't, you know, he's not going to kill him in that moment, because then he'll go straight to heaven or whatever it is. And, you know, it's all, there are so many Catholic references in it. So, and I don't think we'll ever get to the bottom of all of that, but I thought that Shakespeare was really, really worth including, particularly the part that I did include, which is from Hamlet.
Well, I agree on Shakespeare's. You read it and you feel that past. You feel the imagery and the I mean, the key, the touchstone word that everybody seems to be using now is sacramentality, which we're trying to then unpack. It's saying you're bound the mystery to the incarnate world, and that sense of, I mean, we also in our Dragon Common Room conversations are worried about the robots taking over everything, and that, you know, the worship of the machines and the worship of the cloud, and this sort of, you know, we're going to upload our brains into yet another, like, incarnate thing, which is that computer. I mean, that's the irony of the cloud. They are actually physical rocks, right? But the sort of kind of Gnostic fantasy is we'll be discarnate and simply live in the cloud, and our minds will not need to be bound to these physical bodies. But, you know, our Lord became incarnate to show us that the reality of that mystery. We participate in his you know, mystery by way of our being embodied as well. And that if sacramentality seems to be trying to do all of that work of saying what it means to be incarnate, because saying incarnate doesn't seem to bind people anymore, but saying, well, sacramentality, there's some mystery of being in the material that is also part of the spiritual.
Absolutely, which is very Jared Manley Hopkins as well, which we'll perhaps talk about. But yeah, I mean, and poetry is very sacramental in that sense, because it's very much dealing with the metaphysical, the place in the world, and the transcendent. But it's also very much about stuff and things. It can't not be. It has to be, and that's what T.S. Eliot said when he talked about the objective correlative. You know, you can't just have the emotion; you have to have the external details. And that's what good writing is about, is being able to show us those details. Without them, there is nothing.
Yes, and when we're writing this Spenserian dragon poem, which involves a lot of history, and a good deal of it is making sure we have the buildings that we're imagining our characters in very clear, the costumes, the gemstones, the concrete, everything. And I've banned the use of metaphor. That we're not allowed to say as or like, because I just as a discipline to make sure that we're saying the most vivid verbs, the most concrete images that aren't referred to as simply abstractions, but are actually in the characters' interactions and you know, their faces and their bodies and so forth.
It's a very good idea. In fact, I do the same thing because I teach poetry as well. And one of the exercises is to write a poem with no metaphor. But then the other exercise is to write a poem with all metaphor. Right? You know, you've got to be able to do both. So I've just turned to Shakespeare, and I just got to remind myself, of course, that I have of late, but wherefore I know not lost all my mirth. That speech of Hamlet's. It's about the hierarchy, and it's also about divinization, which is very Catholic, you see. And the divinization is something that, once again, that it's, I think with the Reformation, perhaps not everything was lost sort of overnight. I mean, things were prohibited in the faith overnight, perhaps, but things like divinization and the need to confess sins and things like that, I think they took a long time to fade away. And I think Shakespeare shows the presence of that, whether he as a person was still Catholic or not, whether he was a recusant.
I agree with that. It was just a strong part.
Yeah, that's right. Because if somebody died, you know, what are you going to suddenly not pray for them? You know, just because you'd get fined or whatever would have happened. So even, you know, you'd have that impulse. You'd still be saying those prayers, wouldn't you? It would take a while for that to go. Yeah.
Well, I wonder too how, I mean, it hasn't gone away because there's still English Catholics. I mean, and to consider that the effort that the the state took, this is another element of the poem we're writing, because it starts with the Elizabethans, and it starts with this, like how Elizabeth tries to take over all of the magic and that this connection between worlds and reality, and turn it into, it's alchemized, it's turned into the marketplace, in effect.
I wanted to
Yeah.
point something out really quickly. So there was an archaeological dig in the Anglican text, made some of
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also shocking today, like how high Anglicans in England are so Catholic. And Walsingham, the pilgrimage site in England, Walsingham, where there was an apparition in 1061, the Anglican shrine is shockingly Catholic. It's amazing.
Well, and you could say it hasn't gone away because it's true. it's it's not just culture, but it's the reality of our creation and our participation with God in the sacraments. That it can't go away, because that would be like wiping out our existence. So let's say it strongly. It's not, and also, it's like the feeling of, it's simply true. I get this. I mean, I was curious about the responses to your Mary book, because obviously from within academia, saying stuff is true is a little challenging. Since I'm writing this, I recognize that you reading it might come to the problem of devotion from the outside and see it as a strange series of practices. But from the outside, it just looks ridiculous, because what are you doing? You're lighting candles, you're praying, you're making various gestures, you're saying certain words, and that observer position is it shows you some things. But then to step inside that practice and see what the devout see. And I use C.S. Lewis's image of the meditation in the tool shed. So you're outside the light, or you're looking along the light to the sun. My colleagues have found that a challenging invitation, because people, it's like I think the outside view, our Enlightenment exterior philosophized secular view, wants to simply say, no, reality is only this, right? And it's like, no, but if you've converted, if you've stepped into this vision, it's true in a way that you have never been able to access. Like what you were saying, Sally, about seeing the face in the light, and it's simply there, and it's simply true. And once you've seen it, you don't step back out, because, if you do, it's sorrow. I would guess. I'm not sure. I don't dare. Right? It's like, how would you dare turn your back on that invitation?
Exactly.
I'm quite frightened. Well, which brings us back to the first poem. We'll not worry about great right now. We'll worry about the poem. So I'll read Young Donald. I'm also interested that this was translated from the Irish by Lady Augusta Gregory, because I was just reading some books on fairies and the fairy tradition from the 19th and 20th century, and she was very influential in bringing some of the Irish stories to people's attention.
Yeah. She was very big on the Irish culture. Absolutely.
Right. Okay. It is late last night. The dog was speaking of you. The snipe was speaking of you in her deep marsh. It is you are the lonely bird through the woods, and that you may be without a mate until you find me. You promised me, and you said a lie to me, that you would be before me when the sheep are flocked. I gave a whistle and 300 cries to you, and I found nothing there but a bleating lamb. You promised me a thing that was hard for you, a ship of gold under a silver mast, 12 towns with a market in all of them, and a fine white court by the side of the sea. You promised me a thing that is not possible, that you would give me gloves of the skin of a fish, that you would give me shoes of the skin of a bird, and a suit of the dearest silk in Ireland. When I go by myself to the well of loneliness, I sit down and I go through my trouble. When I see the world and do not see my boy, he that has an amber shade in his hair. It was on that Sunday I gave my love to you, the Sunday that is last before Easter Sunday, and myself on my knees reading the Passion, and my 2 eyes giving love to you forever. My mother said to me not to be talking with you today or tomorrow or on the Sunday. It was a bad time she took for telling me that. It was shutting the door after the house was robbed. My heart is as black as the blackness of the sloe, or as the black coal that is on the smith's forge, or as the sole of a shoe left in white halls. It was you put that darkness over my life. You have taken the east from me. You have taken the west from me. You have taken what is before me and what is behind me. You have taken the moon. You have taken the sun from me. And my fear is great that you have taken God from me.
Wonderful, wonderful. So this, to me, is kind of the linchpin of the anthology, because, as I say in the introduction, this was one of my favorite poems when I was a young woman in my 20s, so long before I converted. And in some ways, well, it's the least obviously religious of the poems in the book, but at the same time, it is intensely religious. I mean, it's about a love affair. It's about a young girl who's heartbroken, but because it's from Ireland at that time, because it's 8th century, it's full of scriptural references. And in a sense, it wouldn't even have been, I don't think, intentional on the part of the poet. It's just the way that was the imagery that they were steeped in, and the way that they kind of looked at things. So I just feel that, when she says the promises that he made, these kind of extravagant promises, and she talks about a fine white court by the side of the sea, that's so much like a psalm, in Psalm 84, when they talk about the courts of the Lord. And she says, when I go by myself to the well of loneliness. So it's like the Samaritan woman, and it's just, I just love it. I still love it. And then, of course, she's there on Palm Sunday, and she's kneeling there, and they're reading aloud the Passion, but she can only look across the church to see this bloke with red in his hair, and just feel absolutely gutted. And it's too late. Her mother says, don't be doing that, but it's too late. It's happened. And the imagery, my heart is as black as the blackness of the sloe. Oh gosh, it's just genius poetry. Or as the sole of a shoe left in white halls, like the black and the white is just so vivid. And then the final stanza is absolute existential despair. He's taken everything from her. And the fear is great that you have taken God from me. So it reflects, I think, our sense as human beings. This is the mistake that we can fall into so easily, is that when we're really infatuated with somebody, we're really in love with somebody, but it's kind of a bit more and a bit less than love, isn't it? Because it's like, what it's like when you're a young woman and you just think someone is the bee's knees, and you're obsessed with them. You think that they can make or break you, and of course they can't, and you're actually mistaking them for God, aren't you? So I think that that's the problem with this woman, is that she's young and she thinks that her life can end with this relationship, and she doesn't realize that that's not the case, because God loves her more deeply than that, and her identity is not with a man, her identity is with God. So to me, it's a deeply, deeply Catholic poem. Yeah, I love it. Do you like it?
She's going through her own passion. It's such an interesting juxtaposition of her utter despair. Right.
I heard in it, I heard, I have some personal thoughts, but I'm going to intellectualize them first. My shield went up. You've taken the east from me, you've taken the west from me, you've taken what is before me, it was behind me. That to me sounds like the Patrick prayer, the shield.
Yeah. Yes.
And the deer's cry, when I rise today through mighty strength, the invocation of the Trinity, and that in all of his meditations, Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, and that she is these wonderful ways that the poem can point to, so like everything shimmers out from these tiny references that if you know the rest of it, just it's the whole world. That you've taken Christ from me, which is that terror.
Also, it's a rejection of love too, right? going through his passion and the world rejected him.
Yeah, we don't know anything about the author of the poem, and I mean, it has to be a woman. I mean, they say, don't they, that most of the Anon poems were women. That's what Virginia Woolf said. I don't know. But,
I don't know about that, but the sort of what women write, what men write. We've actually meditated on that a lot because I think we have such different perspectives that, and whether women can see men's perspective and whether men can see women's perspective, it's very challenging.
To me, this is a very, very female poem. Yeah, I don't think that all the poems that were Anon were women, but I think this one could well be. The original is actually much longer, and I don't think I've even seen the whole thing, but these are the stanzas that are usually taken out as being the most noteworthy.
Okay, so I'll try to do this a little. You are better at talking about your personal experiences behind your conversion than I am.
I'm too good at it, Rachel. I'm too good at it.
I was like, I have no. I could give you footnotes and references to everything, but reading the opening of your Mary meditation and your love that you had in when you were a nurse in the hospital with the doctor, who was actually with somebody already. Very poignant and terrible for me because that is part of my story. Although I'm married now to my husband, we had that, the sort of affair feeling, which I have mentioned before on camera, definitely on my blog, as something in my past life that because I married him rather than, moved on, is still part of our relationship, obviously, because we have the previous relationships that we had always there to a certain extent. And see, I'm fumbling it because I don't practice this part of my story. The feeling when we were together and that sort of the love that takes all of the poems and makes them real, it's pretty overwhelming, right? You're in love in this way that all of the the Romeo and Juliet's phrases and descriptions suddenly make sense to you in a way that maybe in other relationships they haven't. And in this poem with the young woman, it's like, yes, women, it's like that feeling of I'm in love with him. I'm so much in love with him. I'll destroy everything to be with him. Eloise says this. I'll see it there. I did it. I intellectualized it out of the room. Right? When she's so, Abelard is so frustrated with her because he's saying you're Christ now. And she's saying to him, but I just did it for you. I took, after he's castrated and they're married already, but he and he's encouraging her, I think, and urging her to go into the monastery. And she doesn't want to. She does not want to be a nun. She wants to be with him, even though, in practical terms, they can't be anymore. And she's saying, I only took the veil for you. And he gives her this long meditation on, but it's, Christ. You should be focused on Christ. And I can't read her lament without feeling that. It's like, I did. I fear about what we did because how overwhelming it was.
Well, and I hear you, sister. and
really, I'm professor. I can't have these feelings. I can't go there.
Dante, which is also in here. Of course, I chose the Paolo and Francesca canto with Dante, but that's so good about sin because the passions. It is like a wind that you, in a sense, can't resist physically. You're being buffeted along, and that's what Dante talks about. And of course, we have to order our passions, and of course, we have to pray, and of course, we have to, try not to sin, and all the rest of it. But people need to remember that wind, for whatever you want to call it, whether it's hormones, chemicals, all the rest of it, we do go absolutely nuts.
Yep.
We go nuts. And I can say something else. I'm going to get way too personal now. I'm now a woman. I'm now a woman of a certain age. People complain about the menopause. I'm like, oh my goodness, a great calm descended on the earth. Are you kidding me?
I've had a bit of a different experience with it, but carry on.
No, but I'm not. Of course, I'm not rubbishing the fact that the priest who I originally started talking to is a Byzantine priest. He's a hermit. He's a very holy man, and he's always telling me about ordering the passions. I'm all for ordering the passions, and with prayer you can get through anything. And I can vouch for the fact that when I have been like caught up in a passion, when I, in the past, like when I've prayed, you could feel Christ like ordering you and calming and like making everything okay. That happens. That's real. So that's why we have to remember that we have free will and Christ can save us, like in the moment. Absolutely. But we also have to remember that, people are floundering around, especially young people and people who don't have faith.
Right.
We have to kind of remember that that's where charity comes in. That's when not judging comes in, because, being human is about being caught up in stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I will say, being a woman of a certain age as well, which tends to come up more because the other place I practice my discipline is in fencing, which is what my blog was about, right? It was about my fencing as prayer practice to start with, my fencing Barrett prayer. But because I compete with women of a certain age, at least in that context, we can share the effects that it's had on us, saying, the hormonal change is huge because it takes all sorts of things. It takes what's been interesting for me is it's taken I know you all will be shocked to hear this, but my aggressiveness down a bit. I wouldn't know why anybody would think that I have that, ambition. But there were other things that we could feel when we were before the menopause, of cycles of, our competitiveness versus when we're not able to see things, like right before you would start your period, you couldn't hit a target to save your life, right? It's like everything. It was very, and then it's like that passes, and you're like, wow, I can do it again. So it was interesting because fencing made me physically aware of those sorts of parts of the cycle, and in a way that obviously my intellectual life wouldn't let me, because you just try to think your way through everything, and this was like, there's no thinking through it. There's you can or you can't. It's there. That what I have, that the strongest effect that I've had could be, in my 50s, being this, is suddenly I'm talking about looking from the outside, right? I see from the outside. I look at all the younger people. Yes, you guys are all younger, and just feel so, like, oh, it's so sweet. All the girls are beautiful. All the young men are handsome. Please get together and be well with each other, right?
I get the same thing too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, and I desperately, it's like I'm a pest, right? It's like, oh, get married, have children, right? Enjoy this, right? It will pass. You won't feel quite this way anymore later. You'll feel other things, and you'll remember what it was like to be in that. But in that moment, when you're in your 20s and your 30s, and particularly in your 20s, you're just swept up. Just be gorgeous and beautiful and be with each other. Better if you're married, and I'm here to tell you the challenging part of that part of the story, because it's so overwhelming. So I'm just wishing everybody happy marriages right now. And
yeah. I'm with you. I get the same thing. All the young men are so handsome. But I think also I find that, I'm much more assertive. Anyway, this has been turning into a menopause discussion group, which
we should have warned everybody.
And my picture of Mary fell off the door as we were talking, so I don't know if that's a sign.
I think she went through this too. She lived long enough to have to deal with it.
I'm being facetious. Of course she wouldn't. She doesn't mind us talking about it at all. It's more to the fact that I tacked it up there. I thought it'd be nice to have her behind me, but I guess my tape wasn't strong enough.
You were saying something else, though.
Was I? No.
Oh, all right. We have to talk. The thing is, this came from the Young Donald poem, right? It's like,
of being saintly if we don't talk about the passions in the first place, and that's what he was all about, and that's what this poet's done, and so that's why I really wanted to get these kinds of poems in there.
So they were saying, we remember being her and being swept up, and it's like I can remember it. I can't feel it anymore, and I feel so sad about that. So it's like when you were you were 20 or whatever, and that guy walked in, and you're just like, that's it, you're doomed. Right? And it's there's still little whiffs of it now and then, and it's not quite as strong anymore. But it's no, I'm being honest. Come on. Poetry is about truth. It's like, right? And
Yeah, but I'm actually with her. I'm like really happy that's
all
over.
right.
It just
You're
feels
admitting
like
it too,
more
but you're happier
calm.
about it, right?
Yeah, I am happy about that. But it is kind of interesting to like suddenly realize that, like, if I think back to when I was in the 20s and you're insecure about my looks, I'm like, what the heck was I
That's what it is.
insecure
Yeah.
about? Look, everybody's gorgeous because youth itself is
Yeah,
just beautiful.
this is our message to the young. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. You really
Yeah,
are. And
absolutely.
this is the sort of land of the lost moment, right? If you grew up watching that on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
There's one when Holly, I think is the character. Is that right? An older version of her comes to talk to her younger version, and so she's
Uh,
like, older Rachel really wants to go back to younger Rachel and say, really, you're beautiful.
yeah.
But you
Yeah.
don't feel it. You feel you.
Like, what are you doing? You're losing all these
And
opportunities.
so and the thing is, I think if there's a Marian meditation in this is like the Sally, one of the things you pointed to, I mean, not in depth, right? At least in the part that I've read so far, but that feminism hasn't disabled us from seeing this about Mary, that she's seen as a threat, because in her, all beautiful, in the, she's the bride of the Song of Songs, she's the dove, she's the perfect one, she's all that. The poem that you found, that I'd worked with Walter's poem, it's like 164 stanzas of how a wonderful Mary is, like. And as another woman,
Mm,
like, she's fallen off your wall, right? Whether you feel envious of her or whether you realize she's looking at you and wanting to say you are beautiful as well, right? That God loves you. My son loves you. And it's super challenging. It's challenging for young women to be able to hear that, because we don't feel it in the same way as I hope now we're conveying. But that to be jealous of her, to be the Simone de Beauvoir jealous of Mary for
mm.
having her submission to Christ and to God, and to becoming his mother. It's hurt so many of us. And I'd say that this turns into a problem for whether or not you're Catholic, right? Catholics, you worship Mary, and you're depriving yourself of Christ by that. It's like, no, she wants us to come to her son. She wants us
Yeah.
to see him. She's doing nothing but trying to show him to us, and we get fixed on being jealous of her.
Yeah, and Simone de Beauvoir, the comment about for the first time in history, the mother kneels before the son and all the rest of it. And I say in my book, I say, well, no, like, every mother kneels before their baby in the crib, don't they? They literally kneel in adoration before the baby, and that's the whole
Yeah.
point. And I think that motherhood is something. There's a particular kinship between the cross of motherhood and the cross, because it's mothers are willing to lay down their lives like that. And it's, of course, fathers are too. Of course, I'm not taking it from them, but there's something very specific about motherhood. And this is what the problem, there's all this kind of stuff coming out at the moment about women that wish they'd never been mothers, and they hate motherhood, and it's all the time. There was an article this morning on the BBC, and you read the article, and it's just sad, and you realize that what's missing from, because the women aren't evil women, they love their children, they just say that it's tougher than they thought, they wish they'd never done it, they haven't got any freedom, it's exhausting. And you think, yeah, because they don't know the cross. If they understood that that is their cross and that's their redemption, then it would be so much easier, wouldn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking of times I've seen that in the wild, and it's hard to have sympathy for those women.
I know. It's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. You know, my first instinct is pray for the child.
Yeah.
To be praying for them, because they have forgotten who they are. Right? But I thought was a point. It's like you felt like you had will be.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Yeah, I would say so. So yeah, I think so. Another reason why Mary is just so important, and she's I say that God is the poet, but Mary is the mother of metaphor, because as you said, Walter Wimborne wrote, how many was it? 164 stanzas.
164.
And then you've got the litany of Carmel, which has got metaphor after metaphor after metaphor, and then Scripture is full of metaphors about Mary. You've got Jerry Manley Hopkins with the Virgin compared to the air that we breathe, which is metaphor after metaphor after metaphor. And my own poems about Mary, you have to resort to metaphor for Mary because she is like no other. So paradoxically, we have to constantly compare her to kind of get a sense of what she is and what she's like.
This is Kim, do you want to read our next poem?
Which
do Saint Ephrem,
Saint
the hymns on the Nativity of Christ.
Yeah, and it's Mary again. Yeah, so Saint Ephrem is 4th century. St. Ephrem the Syriac, and so this is a translation. It was done by the Reverend J.B. Morris, but I kind of just tidied it up a little bit and kind of put it into poetic form, because he put it into prose, which I thought didn't really do it justice. Okay. Hymns on the Nativity of Christ in the Flesh. Mary gained in you, O Lord, the honours of all married women. She conceived you within her without marriage. There was milk in her breasts, not after the way of nature. You made the thirsty land suddenly a fountain of milk. If she carried you, your mighty look made her burden light. If she fed you, it was because you were hungry. If she gave you drink, it was because you were thirsty. When she embraced you, you, the coal of mercies, did willingly keep her bosom safe. Your mother is a wonder. The Lord entered her and became a servant. The Word entered her and became silent within her. Thunder entered her, and his voice was still. The shepherd of all entered her. He became a lamb in her and came forth bleating. The belly of your mother changed the order of things, O you that orders everything. The rich went in, he came out poor. The high one went in, he came out lowly. Brightness went into her and clothed himself and came out a despised form. The mighty went in and clad himself with fear from the belly. He that gives food to all went in to know hunger. He that gives drink to all went in to know thirst. The clother of all came forth from her, naked and bare. And as the harp waits for its master, my mouth waits for you. May the tongue of your mother bring what pleases you. And since I have learnt a new conception by you, let my mouth learn in you, O newborn son, a new song of praise. And if hindrances are no hindrances to you, and since difficulties are easy to you, as a womb without marriage conceived you, and a belly without seed brought you forth, it is easy for a little mouth to multiply your great glory. So the last 2 stanzas there were actually in the voice of Mary.
Okay.
They're kind of voiced for her, saying that, nothing is impossible with you, and look what you've done. So it's easy now for her small mouth to multiply the glory and to give all the glory to God. But I love this. I love the way it takes the scriptural paradoxes. And they say that, the belly of your mother changed the order of things. I mean, how can people say that Mary is kind of a submissive doormat? And then, we see how the fathers of the church viewed her. She is this place of enormous power, although she herself isn't powerful in the worldly way. I mean, she's this incredibly sort of powerful being because she's so incredibly close to God. And the thunder entered her and his voice was still. God became this tiny, tiny, tiny thing inside her. So yeah, I think that's really, really beautiful.
It is. It is. It's hard to fathom, as you said, how people can think that this woman is, as Dubois said, weak and kneeling before her son, and subservience. It's like, he's God. Number one, number two, look at all these things that have been written over the centuries.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
They're looking at this through the lens of world power only. Authority. And if you don't have authority, then
Well,
you're
there's so many
powerless.
layers of the
It's
dismissive
wrong.
dismissal
It's
of
wrong.
Mary, but also Christianity. I mean, the reason I was reading about the fairies is I'm prepping for my Tolkien course and reading some of Ronald Hutton's books. Do you know his work on like witchcraft and magic and things like that? And this one, I've forgotten what he ended up with, the Queens of the Wild. I think he ended up with the title. It's like pagan goddesses, and the opening chapter is on the way in which 19th and early 20th century scholarship pretended that there was all this, covert paganism left over in the countryside in Europe, and so there, the sort of Mary as goddess tends to fold into this kind of question, which is then used to say by Protestants typically, well, you're using her in place of God, and the variety of things there being, well, the true religion of Europe was pagan, and therefore this Christianity is this weird, elite intellectual imposition in some way, which is strange. And two, that that elite imposition of Christianity is only European. It's like, wait a minute, you can't have this both ways. And Saint Ephrem is of course Syrian. That he's from the old, the oldest layers of church history, and writing in, he's like, this is translated from Armenian Syriac. So this is the most ancient version of who she is, and it contains all of the mysteries that we've been trying to explain about how she is the way the primary position that the medieval commentators give her is temple, that she's the doorway for God to enter into the world, that she comes to us, and that as you were reading, Sally, I was thinking that she has to contain everything, because God enters into his creature through her, who then contains God, right? The whole of creation ends up having to contain him, which is the great mystery of why you have to name her in so many different ways, because like, how does the maker enter into his work? Through her, and then what kind of mystery is that? None of this is the pagan understanding of creation.
No.
So
No.
it's wild. It's like we have the wildest story available that for weird reasons modernity has been refusing to look at.
I don't think it's even the pagan understanding of
No, it's not.
goddesses.
Yeah, and you have to, I think, to be Catholic and to be Christian, you have to be, I mean, poetry is so much a part of it, isn't it? And I think people stumble because they can't, perhaps they don't take on that she's a normal, ordinary woman, right?
Right.
And at the same time, she is all these kind of figures and tropes and things and metaphors that you have to bring in to understand what she is, like what her essence is in the world, what she was created to be, which is something subtly different, or not different, not separate, but just kind of this added dimension to her. And if we don't think of her as, wisdom and the bride and all these other different things, then we're not going to get who she is, But at the same time, we can't forget the fact that she was this woman in Nazareth who was doing the cooking and the washing up and the dishes, as you would say. We have to hold both those realities because they're so interconnected, they're so intimately entwined.
Well, the great mystery being of this is one that I've come to understand better recently, because I spent a lot of time last year thinking about Franciscans, and the Franciscans include the scholastic friars like John Duns Scotus, who make arguments for things like the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception, which then tends to divide people. I mean, there's certain casualties you get from working on Mary, and one is always, you have to answer this question about the Immaculate Conception. Do you believe that she's the Immaculate Conception? And I'm like, well, yes, but let me explain why. And the usual way is to look at her as a problem of privilege. Well, she's got this privilege of not having sinned, that somehow she's preserved from. And so that means that somehow Christ isn't her redeemer as well. And it's like, that's nonsense because he made her. Um, but the sort of backing up to the point where you can see the problem of her making is of a piece with the problem of God's making everything. So he's made all of creation. And so, yes, he makes her as a special part of creation in order to participate in his creation through the incarnation. And just like it always takes, to understand her, it always takes panning out so far so that you see the whole, and people end up focusing so much on just that speck of her person rather than her participation in this whole mystery.
Yeah.
I think it's the fact that it's a mystery that a lot of people, well, at least post-Enlightenment, post-Catholic people would have a problem with, because
Yeah, we've lost the capacity to look at mystery, haven't we? Because everything's explained.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I should acknowledge at the moment that we have John Abrisi has joined us from Australia, and he's complaining about what time we're streaming at. Well, sorry, John. Sally's in Italy, so we were accommodating her schedule. He's a customer complaint. What sort of time is this for a podcast? Do you know what time it is in Australia? No, we don't. Sorry.
No.
He's saying numinous is a good word. Surely all of this hinges on imagination, the harnessing of imagination guided by cosmic reality as defined by doctrine from revealed knowledge. Connection with God, Mary, etc. is happening there. I think it's the cultural misuse of the word imagination and the misunderstanding of its role in our lives in grasping reality. How do you imagine Mary? Or how do you imagine Mary? How do you imagine? The emphasis on that is tricky to get. Well, I think so. In medieval terms, imagination is one of our mental faculties. It goes along with memory and reason and will and things like that. So it's a particular ability that we have mentally.
And William Blake, I mean, later William Blake picked up on imagination as the place of faith, didn't he? It was this conception of God all to do with the imagination as well. Yeah, I mean, I think that's where poetry comes in as well, is that you're called on to really consider how everything fits together and kind of and what the reality of somebody is in the world. Because in poetry you can't let go of the concrete, you can't let go of as I was saying earlier, you've got to have what really happened and what's really in the world and unite the two. So the absolute kind of nuts and bolts with the more abstract, mysterious stuff, it has to both.
Yeah, Rachel brought this up when she first started her poetry group 5 years ago. It's like poetry has to be about something concrete, and I absolutely loved when she said that, because people, myself included, rejected a lot of modern poetry because it tends to be about expression of emotion, completely devoid of, it just seems to be a lot of just expression for expression's sake, without actually trying to land on something that your audience can actually relate to and understand. It's supposed to be a way of communication, but it just seemed to be all thing of poetry now, which is, I'm not a fan. I've mocked it. In writing, one of the first exercises actually was, but I think a lot of poetry is still like that. It's a lot of free verse, and I think they're playing fast and loose with even that, even with free verse, when they're writing it. So it's good to hear what you're saying, that it still has to be about something concrete.
You have to be anchored in reality, otherwise it's not going to go anywhere at all. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I'm now thinking about the exercises I gave you. We were actually using Stephen Fry's book. We'd like some advice on teaching poetry or learning poetry, but we were using Stephen Fry's book because he's trying to give like exercise. He gave a lot of nice exercises, and some of it was just like his topics that he'd pick would be sort of sort of like what you saw at your window or something like that. It would be like make practicing the meter and sort of feeling the structure of it the first thing that you're worrying about, rather than coming up with some lofty topic that you then want to render into poetry. Because I mean, it's funny because I think we should go to Hopkins next. that the temptation is always say, well, great poetry lifts us up in ways that nothing else does. And so if you're wanting to start working, with words and playing with them and crafting them together, you want to make a poem about something that really matters, and that can backfire.
Yeah, you can't start at the top of the tree. You have to start somewhere else. It's true. Actually, I'll plug that I have a book coming out this year with Word on Fire called The Secrets to Reading Poetry, Unlocking the Language of God. And although it's not directed at writers so much as understanding poetry, it is also useful for writers. So yeah, I do a lot with this kind of stuff. About what makes a good poem and how we can engage with it and understand it.
So what's the difference between reading and writing poetry? Because
there's not, in a sense, there's not much difference. I think the best way to learn to write is to read. In fact, there is really no other way. You have to just read and read and read and read. Yeah, it's about getting your ear in, and it's and it's all the things I've been talking about as well, about knowing what you're saying and also not knowing what you're saying. So you end up at a point where it can't be expressed in any other way.
I've been thinking that we started with Stephen Fry's book, with some knowledge of the fact that he doesn't not all of the poetry he's ever written has been like safe for work, as we would say, so cautionary. Anyway, that
what does that mean? Sorry, because I haven't read any of his poetry.
Oh well, he's a little adventuresome in some of his poems, in terms of some of his own passions, I'd say.
Okay.
That he and I'm thinking about like some of the first topics I gave us to write about were like steak. write a poem about steak, or orange juice, or we did a series of pick a topic. I think Fry gave these examples, like pick a topic of something from in the news right now and write about that. So we had a number of sort of very topical poems at the time.
Yeah. That was a good. Yeah, they were good exercises.
It was fun exercise because instead of worrying about your sense of self that you're trying to express, you're trying to describe it. So it's more like the sort of things you do if you go to an art class and here draw the teacher sets out all the objects to do a still life, and it's like just draw the cone, right? Stop trying to pretend that you know what a cone looks like. Look at it and actually draw it. And that we were using the exercise to just say what's there, but that I think if you've only read great poetry and then you're trying to write your own, which is like doesn't scan and maybe rhymes and is silly and such like that, I'm stumbling around here saying the feeling of despair because I'll never write anything that great. But what I realize is even writing the silly things that we wrote made me go back to the great poems and say that then you become much more aware of your own incapacity at this point and say, wow, that's amazing. I could never write that. Instead of, I think, unfortunately, if we only read the great poems, sort of backwards thinking about it. If we only read the great poems, we don't realize how hard they are to achieve, except for when you do achieve them, it's all just right? So you have that sense of Kim and I have had this experience. Like once you figure out what the right word is, all of the other words are gone, right? It's like all of the bad words that didn't work and that are broken and things like that. But you can't appreciate the choice of the right word unless you've tried out all of those other ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'd say that I've only now reading poetry to appreciate it because I've been stumbling around trying to write our poems, and then we go back to our earlier stuff and go, oh my gosh, it doesn't scan, or I can feel that it could be better now, but it's only through the practice of writing it that we've gotten to that place where it makes sense to say this. And when I was reading through your selections for our discussion today, I'm saying, oh, I had imposter syndrome last night when we were prepping. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we've written nothing. And Kim was going, what are you talking about? And I say, but in comparison, it's dreadful. So do you have some comfort for those of us who have struggled
Well, but I think, the thing is that we all feel that about our work. And I
Yeah.
think that all writers feel, well, you go from thinking that what you've written is absolutely brilliant, there's never been anything like it, to feeling like it's absolutely abysmal and appalling. And that's normal. It's completely normal. And everybody has to start somewhere. Like it's all a process, isn't it? And we all, and also every poet, pretty much every poet in this book will have written poems that weren't that good, apart from Shakespeare probably, but most of them would have written stuff that just wasn't that great. And then I've got a theory that every good poet will only write about 1 or 2 great poems in their lifetime.
This is comforting. No, because it's like every so often that couplet comes out. So one of our before we started our long Spenserian Draco Chemicus poem, we wrote a kids story, which we called Aurora Borealis, because it's about bears going from the North Pole to the South Pole. And that we wrote it together as a group and things like that. And there's one couplet that came to me in the shower that it's one of the ones I can like actually recite, I think, if I can pull this off from memory. But you sort of feeling like this one phrase came together. That's it. In all of the rest of the poem. It's 100 stanzas long. It's a whole story. It's like their quest accomplished, homeward bound the bears lay dreaming in the bosom of their boat.
Nice.
It actually like scans and makes sense, but it's the one, and I think there's other great parts of the poem, but that feeling of it all chimed together, and it's there in memory. It's all of the things you always say poems should be, like memorable and well structured and shaping our world, and yet they're incredibly rare to find that one perfect.
Well, writing an epic poem is very, very ambitious.
I don't write short books. It's a failure.
No, your project is expanding into like 7.
It's still shorter than Spencer, but no. But the thing is, I think it's you have to write a lot for that 1 or 2 perfect.
You do. Yeah.
Expressions to come through. So it's not like, oh, if I practice and practice and practice, it'll all come out great eventually. Right.
You still have to write a lot of a lot of dross to get to the gold. You do. You just have. That's just the way that has to go. Oh, I throw away huge amounts of poetry all the time.
So now we can read Hopkins. We're sufficiently.
Yeah.
We're sufficiently humbled. Okay, Casey, can you read this one? This was it's as Kingfishers Catch Fire, right?
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Okay, that's really short. Okay. As kingfishers catch fire, dragonflies draw flame, as tumbled over rim and roundy wells, stones ring, like each tucked string tells, each hung bell's bow swung, finds tongue to flame out broad its name. Each mortal thing does one thing and the same, deals out that being indoors each one dwells, sells, goes itself, myself it speaks and sells, crying, what I do is me, for that I say more, the just man, justices, great, all his goings graces, acting God's eye, what in God's eye is.
So the first thing might be to say that Hopkins is difficult. There's no getting around it. Like he is. So people should never feel bad about having difficulty with Hopkins, because he pushes language to its absolute limits, and it doesn't matter. What you have to do is appreciate the music first and foremost. Just really appreciate the music. And then what you find is that in the midst of all of these strange images, he'll suddenly give you lines that tell you clearly what he's talking about. So the first line that's clear is, each mortal thing does one thing and the same. Okay, so he's talking about what everything created has in common. selves goes itself, myself it speaks and spells, crying, what I do is me, for that I came. So it's all about the raison d'etre of our lives, all about our God-given vocation in the world. We do what we are, and we are what we do. So it's all about that. And the beginning lines, they seem, well, it's all about the music. The kingfishers catch fire. So it's like, you imagine the bird, and there's that ignition of like it catching fire. It's the colors, you know, and the dragonflies draw flame, that alliteration. So the dragonflies look like a flame too. And then he makes up words like Shakespeare did. So as tumbled over Rim roundy wells, well, roundy's not a word, but he just says roundy as an adjective. So he's saying that stones ringing, even a stone is like a bird or a dragonfly. Even a stone has its kind of thing it must do. Okay. And then each tucked string, that's like a cello or a violin, it's a musical instrument. So it's, each tucked string tells. And then he talks about the bells and how the bell's bow swings and flings out broad its name. So it's all these things doing what they were brought in the world to do, and being what they are. Hopkins was a priest, and he had this theory of inscape. He called it inscape, and it was basically, it was very much from Duns Scotus, the medieval theologian, who talked about, how is it pronounced?
It's hike from
hike
hoc. It's thisness, right?
Thisness.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, so thisness. So he had this theory before he started to study Duns Scotus, but when he studied Duns Scotus, he realized that he thought the same thing. That everything has this thisness. So that was what he brought into his poetry, and it's like saying that, you know, all pine trees aren't the same. One particular pine tree will have a particular essence that's different from everything else. So in his poetry, he's trying to encapsulate that, and that fundamentally is what poetry does. It tries to encapsulate something, the originality, the uniqueness of something.
So Duns Scotus is the same who I was referring to, that developed the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception. And so it's Mary's thisness. That's really excellent.
Second part of the sonnet, because this is a sonnet. So the second part of the sonnet is about us, and how the just man justices. So that's, you know, he turns justice into a verb, and how we're all called to act in God's eye, what in God's eye we are. So we're called to be Christ, and Christ is in all of us. So that's our basic vocation, is to be Christ-like. So it's, you know, very spiritual. Really consoling. I find it a really consoling poem. I think it tells us what our identity is, and that our identity is completely unique. We've all got something that we have to do. Wasn't it Joan of Arc who said, what did she say? She said, for this I was born, or whatever she said, before she went off to do what she had to do.
Yeah.
You know, we've all got our thing that we have to do, and it's subtly different for everybody. And it doesn't mean that we have to be a film star or be president. It means that we have to acknowledge that there's something unique to us, and that it's about knowing that we're a child of God.
Now it just popped into my head why I don't like AI so much. Because it has a big unique way for everybody to make everything the same. People have these visceral reactions against it whenever an AI video pops up. You feel someone is trying to fool you, right? Trying to make something natural, which isn't, and it always looks very unnatural. And I've heard a lot of preachers of the gospel of AI is coming, telling me that I won't be able to tell the difference. I remain convinced.
I think it's going to be challenging. I mean, they're bringing in a logo in England to say, you know, human authored for books now.
Good.
Because so many books are being AI'd, you know. I can, you know, I predicted that. I mean, to write a murder mystery or to write a romance is very, very formulaic. So of course the computer can do it.
Right. And I think that's similar to other programs they've had in the past, where they made a program to copy the style it needs to hire people to do this. They would just be
Exactly. But I think we should view it as a challenge, because I think that, I'm sorry for the people who are writing the mysteries and writing the romances for Mills and Boon, but actually once you've cleared all that away, it means that, writing is going to go back to being something that's very difficult to do, and it is a job that can't be done by anybody else. And you'll go into a bookshop and there'll be like the AI on one side and the humans on the other side, and that it's like the difference between literary fiction and your romances and all the rest of it. I hate to say it, but it's true, because I can see how a Mills and Boon could be written by AI. It's not difficult.
no.
So I'm having to think about this a lot in my teaching, since I'm wanting to have the students do their own work. And one of the effects of it is we have to do more things in person, which for the sake of the incarnation is a good thing. That that writing and publication, another of the big things that we've been thinking about in our poetry writing is Marshall McLuhan's media insights and the sort of the effects of the print and electronic media, the way that we're able to talk right now, right, with John listening from Australia and we're talking across 2 continents and an ocean, that all of these things are they're mediated, right, they're at a remove from our actual person to person interaction. And the interesting thing of what I think is going to happen with the AI is it makes in-person, actual, human interaction necessary to be able to trust anything. We don't have, it's like you're talking about verifying things by putting stamps on them to say that they're human written, but the only way you're going to know that it's human is if you can participate in a conversation with people.
Yeah. Exactly. So there might be positives to it eventually, but I think it's very, very depressing.
Well, it's economically. This is also coming into what we're writing right now in our Act 5, right? Because the characters are now putting Christ on trial, and one of them speaks for like the Industrial Revolution and the machines, and but it's great, isn't it going to make everybody comfortable and happy to have these meditations coming from the Crystal Palace exhibition from the 1850s, when they have, it's something I use in my teaching, where there are articles in the Economist newspaper that were touting the Crystal Palace exhibition, right? And one of the things they're saying is all these machines, this is great. We've made so much progress since 1800. It's 1850 now, and this is going to change the world, and everybody's going to live in nothing but glass houses, which if you live in Chicago's high rises, you kind of do. And the sort of boosterism of that, like the machines are going to make everything so much better, you'll be free to be human, when they're taking away the thing that makes us human, which is our making, our actual joy and craftsmanship and art.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, we have to fight it, and I think I do see kind of signs of even like the younger generation, they're fighting against it to a certain extent. I mean, they're all the dating apps and all the rest of it, but there's something sort of observing that generation. There's an eagerness now to get out there and to meet each other in the flesh, which I don't know whether it's just the kids that I know, but they're beginning to get fed up of being online. They really are.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, and that's in our Hopkins, the joy of it is he's starting with these creatures, this kingfishers. How often do you think about kingfishers? Almost never. I don't think I've seen one, maybe a video, right? That he's making you attend to the specific creatures in their particularity, the kingfishers, the dragonflies, the stones, every mortal thing singing, right? And it's got to be echoing the rocks and stones would cry out, which is an irony of the AI, since it rocks. And metal, that it's generated out of the computers. We were looking last week at the problem of electromagnetism and machines, and our friend who was just talking with us last week pointing out, the machines are works of art too. We was like, oh yeah, okay, all the work that it takes to make an actual chip with light and the different metals that they use and things like that. And it's like, okay, they're big gemstones. Okay, so the sort of problem of seeing the artistry in even the machines that are taking away from us the artistry of making things. Each mortal thing does one and the same. We have to include the AI in here. Maybe we write the AI into the poem, then we'll win it. I don't know. How do we beat it? By showing it its particularity. That what I do is me, for that I came. I mean, that sounds to me like both the creature saying it and God, right? My incarnate, the I of the I am. I came for you to be in here. The meditation of Christ in all of our faces is Christ plays in 10,000 places.
Yeah,
to the Father.
Lovely in limbs and lovely in eyes, not his. It's so gorgeous.
That as you know, sort of we're doing catechism here too, and the help for those who did not grow up Catholic, we hope. Not just Mary, but I'd say, you know, the saints had been for me I don't have stumbling blocks except for my stumbling blocks are different from most people's, I think. The saints had been not to me so much a stumbling block of Catholicism as more like an irrelevance. Like, why do you need all those saints, right? Don't you have Christ? And I did a paper on Anselm of Canterbury's prayers to the saints, because he wrote these beautiful prayers to Mary, which I meditated on a lot. I love Our Lady. I love thinking about Our Lady. Why do you need a prayer about Saint Benedict, right? Why do you need a prayer about Paul or John, right? It's like, I've got Mary, right? Don't we just want the Mary prayers? And realizing you need all of the saints because every single one of them, and I think Anselm shows this in his prayers, they're all showing their relationship with Christ. So I have my relationship with Christ. Mary has her relationship with Christ. Peter has his relationship with Christ. It's like, and I think Hopkins, for me, this is what I hear in the poem. To the Father through the features of men's faces, Christ plays in 10,000 places on every face. We're all like parts of the reflection of our Maker.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know a mosaic, indeed.
It is. No, ladies, I have a power issue. So can I suggest that? Are you going to go on to the next poem? If you read it, I can just quickly move myself around.
Okay, I'll read it.
So
I'll read it.
In.
Okay, I will read it.
I'm gonna plug in. I'm so sorry. Excuse me.
Okay. Go plug in. All right. So, which do you have a particular one that we liked best, Casey? We have the King. Okay, so Joseph Mary Plunkett. Okay, yes. This is.
The next one is
we'll tell Sally when she comes back when we read.
Okay.
This is Joseph Mary Plunkett's "I See His Blood Upon the Rose." This is from her introduction, which is quite poignant. Plunkett was known for his part in the Irish Easter Uprising of 1916. The British executed him at the age of 28, 7 hours after his marriage to Grace Gifford.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh,
I mean, so like, wow. And this is from 1916. So it's like in the midst of the war, he's executed as for something completely other than being at the Somme, right? It's not killed in the war. This is reading Plunkett and thinking on the poignancy of his story, right? After his death, his sister published his controlled and often passionate poems. Okay, so I'll read this one. I see his blood upon the rose. I see his blood upon the rose, and in the stars the glory of his eyes. His body gleams amid eternal snows. His tears fall from the skies. I see his face in every flower. The thunder and the singing of the birds are but his voice, and carven by his power, rocks are his written words. All pathways by his feet are worn. His strong heart stirs the ever-beating sea. His crown of thorns is twined with every thorn. His cross is every tree. I'm taken by rocks are his written words after our meditation on the computers.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what's interesting. The AI, the premise of the AI is completely at odds with its reality, which is you need these enormous data centers. Someone's typing. I'm getting there. There's a bit of a.
Yeah.
Is that you?
It's not me.
I'm hearing a background noise.
Me too. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a crackling.
Is it me? Is it because I'm charging?
I think it is.
No, it shouldn't be.
Maybe.
Sorry,
Shouldn't be,
what
surely.
is it? We're getting the poems are talking to us.
Let me just see if I unplug it.
Morse code.
It's because I'm charging. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
It stopped now.
No,
But
no,
but you
no,
need
hang on.
power.
Unplug it.
We need power to do the poems. It stopped.
Okay. It stopped.
Okay, so the rocks are trying to talk to us.
This is, I mean, this was written in 1916 from prison. What's
oh no,
fascinating, maybe
she's gone sideways.
you have.
What's happened? Oh my goodness. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, but now
We
you're
can hear-
sideways.
Can you hear us?
What am I going to do?
I don't think she can hear us.
I'm so this is we take all of these things in stride because of course this is live and this is our proof.
The rocks are speaking.
The speaking rocks. Yeah. So John was saying Hopkins is very difficult, which the thing is, what's funny about hoping Sally comes back so we can talk about Plunkett, but so I don't find Hopkins difficult. I find him exquisite, and I just feel like I could. Whoops! Now we lost her. Okay. I may need to add her back in when she comes back in.
Yeah, I thought that the Kingfishers, I mean, obviously my reading's not great, but no, I found that a really interesting poem. I've read it before. It's the only one that I recognized of the ones that we're using here.
You're back.
Hi.
Okay. I can see you. Yes,
Yes,
I'm gonna have
we can.
to show a little bit of, and the clicking's going. Just a second.
The clicking.
Can you hear us now? Sometimes the audio takes a bit to pick up. Can you hear us, Sally?
I think she can. Yeah.
She did do that. She did leave and come back. I mean, one thing I can do is restart the whole room, but that might drop both of
Okay.
you. Yeah, but
Well,
she won't know what
It's
happens.
okay. I can come back in.
She won't know
Why don't
why.
Well, I can.
Okay,
hold up a
why
note.
did you hold up a note? Can you write a note? We're our real time live
Okay.
streaming is this is the perils of being across the ocean.
Okay.
I can't see it. There we go. Yeah, it says leave and come back in. Okay, she's trying. Okay. Well, she left.
Leave and come back
You're
in.
gonna leave and come back in. Okay. Can you hear me?
Hello?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear
Kim?
us?
You got to write on your paper again. We may not be able to fix this in real time. Oh. I don't know what to do because we have had this problem before, right?
Can't remember.
We did, but the thing is that
Probably.
we had it when someone couldn't hear us at all, right? As opposed to why she can't hear us right now because we were fine before.
Is it something?
No, 'cause I also restarted the platform. So, well, okay. So this is it's I don't know what to do. I think the thing is we've gone for an hour and a half, and so we've read a lot of poems, and I don't have a pen. Here we go. Right. I say we can say goodnight. Wait, but I can hear you. We can hear you.
I can't read it.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Are you saying bye? Are you saying goodbye?
We'll say goodbye.
I'm so sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
But we can hear you.
I don't know what happened. Okay. Okay. I could try
do
and
that.
come,
do that.
try,
try
and
one
come
more
out
time.
And come back in again. Should I try one more time to come back in again?
Well, the thing is, it's the
perfectly clear too.
Ninja Room is picking her back up and putting her back in the stream. So everybody now, it's like our live stream is watching this. The rocks. The rocks are his written words. The rocks are really mad at us because we were making fun of them, and the it's like the computer, the robots are insisting.
Our robot
overlords are frustrated with us, saying, "Ha, you think you can live without us?" And we're like, "No, we didn't say that. We were trying to make a place for you in creation." And
they're just being unique.
It's right instead of being right. The meta at this point is just off the charts, right?
Yeah. And she's back. Can you hear us?
You can hear us? Oh, okay. Right. Now, let me get you back on stream.
Oh, yay!
Okay.
On air.
We see you. You hear us.
I do.
Excellent. Okay. So the thing is this. Okay. Consider that we are poets, and therefore we take nothing. We take nothing as coincidence ever again. and if you if you consider that what we were talking about just then was how the computers are not, the computers got mad at us, right, and dropped you, and then made it.
Well, yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Anyway, so with Plunkett's poem, right, rocks are his written words, and see, the computers wanted us to be talking about them and not poems, or not. The computers are claiming that they can write poems too. How's that?
They are. Yeah, so rocks are written poems, and what's really lovely about this poem of Joseph Mary Plunkett is that he was Irish, and this poem is so typical of the very early Irish Christian poetry, which was being written right at the very beginning, like at the time of St. Ephrem, like 4th century 5th century, 6th century, with incredible detail to the natural world, all about the rocks and the flowers. And they really saw God in every created thing, very much like Jared Manley Hopkins. So Joseph Mary Plunkett was really doing that and seeing God and seeing Christ's passion written on nature, which is something that we don't do enough, I think, these days.
Do you? Here we are in our robot room again. Well, but what I mean, so the problem, it's like the nature versus the machines that we're in. That we're in this giant artifact. One, we're in creation, which is God's artifact, and then we are participating in this conversation through a whole bunch of machines, which are artifacts that are, I mean, ironically enabling us as the poem. I mean, the poems are coming to us from centuries and centuries and centuries ago, which is astonishing of itself. And we wouldn't have them if they hadn't written them down and then had them copied into parchments and then copied into books, and then we can talk about them. It's trying to find the right relationship between our art and nature is our huge problem, because we end up with idolatry for worshiping the machines and saying the AI is going to take away all of this stress and difficulty to redeem us, right? Whereas without the artifacts, without our poetry, our writing, our physical media that enable us to share these things with us, we wouldn't be able to communicate in the ways that we are now. So it's a bit of a puzzle.
It is a puzzle, and we have to think about the fact that the printing press would have seemed radical, and all the machines in the Crystal Palace would have seemed completely radical as well. And things, everybody was tearing their hair out about the looms, the mechanical looms that made the cotton and all that kind of stuff. So I think I hope that we'll settle down, but I think the problem is that we're becoming a post-Christian society. We are a post-Christian society.
Right.
So we're losing that sense of what is a person, what is consciousness. I mean, my daughter's doing a degree in philosophy, and people, sometimes will say, oh, well, what a useless degree. But I think it's a degree that's more important now than almost any other degree, because it's literally, they're asking questions about what it means to be human. And we have to pursue that. We have to know. So, but I think that there can be positive things that do come out of AI. And we should remember that things have always seemed scary, but at the same time, we have to be very much on our guard about protecting what it is to be human. And we come back again to motherhood, what we were talking about before, which is that people are losing sight of what we're called to do and be as human beings. That fundamental sense of, actually life is about self-sacrifice, and it's about the diminishment of yourself and the increasing of other people and of God, and about not putting yourself first all the time. I mean, basic things, but we're losing that as a society. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and in Garden of Eden, then originally, work was began as a blessing. He was, he did till and keep the garden even before the fall. We were always meant to do things and make things. And as you say, that the word for poet is makar. In Scottish, it's
right. Poesis is making,
and it's in
so
Greek, isn't it?
It's art,
poet
craft.
Is a maker.
It's all of that.
Yeah.
There was I had an idea. Well, I was realizing we've managed to get to Mass at Dawn nicely. Which can I read this one? Read Campbell's, because
yes, please do.
he's talking about work. and the being in the boat, right, in the bosom of the boat.
Yeah.
So this is Roy Campbell's Mass at Dawn. I dropped my sail and dried my dripping seines, where the white quay is checkered by cool plains, in whose great branches, always out of sight, the nightingales are singing day and night. Though all was gray beneath the moon's gray beam, my boat in her new paint shone like a bride, and silver in my baskets shone the bream. My arms were tired, and I was heavy-eyed. But when with food and drink at morning light, the children met me at the waterside, never was wine so red or bread so white.
Now, this is a very mysterious poem. Okay, so to back up a bit, then Roy Campbell was writing in the 1930s, and he was a real rebel. He was South African, and he campaigned against apartheid. But then he moved to London, and he campaigned against the Bloomsbury set as well. Because I think his wife had an affair with somebody in the Bloomsbury set. I can't remember if it was a male or a female, but he was very fed up with all of them, so he was kind of ejected from them. And then he went to Spain to fight in the Spanish Civil War, but he fought on the side of Franco. So, you know, he got cancelled, you know, because he was always on the wrong side of things. And he was a kind of a Hemingway type character. He was a soldier. He was also a sailor, as this poem suggests, because he had a boat, etc. So he was a kind of a macho kind of guy, and a convert. And I love this poem because it's about a real a man out in a boat, like he's coming into harbour. But at the same time, it seems so much more than that, because it's mass at dawn, right? And when he comes home, there are children waiting for him with food and wine, and yet you know that it's something more. Like this is about the bread and the wine of the mass in some strange way. So I wrote in my commentary, like, you know, you can kind of imagine, well, is it Jesus coming into the harbour, you know, or is it Jesus waiting at the harbour, or, you know, because there's so much about boats and the sea in scripture as well. So it's a kind of a quietly mysterious poem, I think.
So one of the things I love thinking about, and it's in Dante's description of Mary, is the mirroring. It's like mirrors is obviously also in medieval. Everything's a speculum. Everything's a mirror, but that so many of these poems are always God mirroring Himself in us. God, our actions mirroring Christ. And I think this was what I was thinking about. We're talking about the machines and the problem of losing our humanity, and that people are post-Christian, and we've lost this vision. It's not. This is another of the things Casey and I've been talking about with our poem, that it's not so much that the things that we're, you know, drawn to are bad, like industry, as you're saying. It's like the looms. We've meditated on that a lot. What happens when people are not making textiles anymore by hand? I've been studying these late medieval devotions, sort of like rosaries that are counted prayers that you count out making chaplets for Mary, or prayers in which you say 10,000 Ave Marias and you're making stitches in a garment for her. And then I was thinking that you know, when people handmade textiles, you have to deal with 10,000 stitches on a regular basis, like, so that her, you know, these prayers, the prayers themselves are craft, which are participating in the kind of handcraft that I just, my fingers want to start doing things, right? It's like, that's, to me, that's what, you know, the machines are constantly taking the things that we are ourselves embodied making. And Campbell's poem here is talking about drawing in the nets and having the fish, and the fishing is all incredibly physical. And it's that physicality of the incarnation that, as Casey was saying, the machines are constantly saying, well, we'll take that all away from you. We'll take away all that incarnate work that you have, which is in fact what, you know, in our brains, that's as much part of our cortex, right? There's that homunculus image that you get in every psychology textbook, where it's about how much of your cortex is your fingers and hands and how much your lips and tongue, and it's about the same, right? So everything that we take away from our hands being able to do, it's as much as we're taking away from our voices and our articulation. And that in Campbell's poem, the fishing is what Christ is doing, but it's got to be work in that physical sense.
Yeah, and I use this poem a lot with my students, because it's so physical, and you've got all the senses in there. You know, you've got a lot of visual stuff, and you've got the sounds of the water, and you've got the smell of the fish and the salt and all the rest of it. So it's really, really physical, and there's a lot of kind of a good he does a lot of things with color, because if you look through, it's all white and gray. It's all about the moon and about the fish, and it's all silvery. And then just at the very end, you've got this red wine, which seems incredibly, this splash of color. It's really striking. So it seems very simple, but it's actually not very simple. It's not simple as a poem. It's very, very cleverly done. He paints it. Yeah, it is intriguing. You wonder, because I know that he did have a boat, and you sort of wonder what inspired the poem. I think he probably was just coming home after a night's fishing or whatever, or sailing or whatever, and he really was met by his people in the harbour. But of course, it's just loaded, because Catholicism is loaded with so many images that are so resonant. That
Yes.
yeah. And the mass, and you can never say bread or wine in Christianity without thinking of Christ. So that all the images kind of unfold from each other.
But these poems are constantly showing us we are going to find God is going to encounter us in all of these moments and all these activities, and you're got the tight that clicking again. We're really
yeah, I know.
Our robots are not liking us tonight.
I don't like this poem.
Well, they're here. The computers definitely want us to pay attention to the mysteries. Sally, can you still? Oh, she's leaving again.
Oh. Maybe she'll come back in.
Okay.
Yes, it's the computer gods, of the AI gods, of sense we're talking about something, concrete.
You do wonder, right? They say everything's being, eavesdropped on, and how much.
Yeah.
Well, and that this is happening. I mean, I always wonder with the internet, this is happening through the cables, right, underground. This is going on the cables,
and under
like
the ocean.
Under the ocean, right? So I think for a long time I always thought of it as like bouncing off satellites, but of course it isn't, right?
Right.
The internet is
mainly
mainly underground, isn't it?
Yeah, it'd be underground and underwater also. Yeah.
So we're okay under. They keep being mischievous. These mischievous fairy haunted rocks, right? So we had one more poem, but we've taken the time that we promised you we'd take. So do we want to read the Vittoria Colonna, or do you want to?
As long as the connection holds out.
Okay, let's read. We have one last, because I think this is an appropriate conclusion to our womanly meditation.
Yeah, okay,
beginning with the young Donald and ending with Vittoria.
So Vittoria Colonna was a good friend of Michelangelo, and she was a widow, and she was very devout, and she decided at a certain point that all of her writing was going to be for God. Okay. Again. No.
It's
no.
You're breaking up.
Can you hear me? No. Okay. I wonder if it's just my connection. I don't know why.
The room. Sometimes it's just a different room.
No. I think
I admire her patience.
Yes.
She wanted to use the phone because she was worried the camera was better on her phone than on her laptop. But we said the phones are mobile, but on the other hand, they have other limitations.
Mm. There she is.
Well, let me bring you back on. I just have to bring you back in just one more time. This has tested my tech skills. So I'd say let Vittoria will have to wait for another time. We'll have to have you back in different, more durable circumstances. Thank you so much for joining us. Like, can tell people where to find things, and oh, she can't hear us now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you. It's been such a pleasure. So my website is sallyreed.net. So Sally Reed, READ, like to read a book.net. So you can find out about all my books and what I get up to. But it's been such a pleasure, and I'm so sorry that I don't know if it was me or what it was, but
it's the AI gods. We ride the
AI
stream. We take where the boat takes us and how it goes. So we'll have everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have the link to Sally's website. You've got to get her book of 100 great Catholic poems, and you will be amazed. Right? We've only barely scratched the surface of the richness.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And get it from Word on Fire. Get it direct from Word on Fire. That's the best place to do that.
Oh, great! I'll put up a link to their site too, so that people can find it. Thank you so much for joining us, Sally. This has been wonderful.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
We'll have
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Okay.